Welcome to a new interview sessions we're doing to the authors of the book The Mind of the World Philosophy Day 2019, sponsored by the Malaysian branch of the World Philosophical Forum. Today we are at the University Technology Malaysia, right? And we are with Dr. Tajul, who wrote the paper Exposition to Islam, Psychology and Psycho-Spiritual Approach. Doctor, thank you to come in here and to do this interview with us. We're going to talk about your paper, which is part of the book, The Mind of the World Philosophy Day. So for you, what is the most important thing or the most interesting thing about the Islamic psychology?
Right, thank you so much. Actually, the Islamic psychology is the very basis of knowledge for the other types of knowledge in psychology, emerging psychology, like we call it positive psychology, emotional intelligence, and spiritual intelligence. This is new type of psychological concept, and before we start to this concept, we must start in the sense of Islamic perspective. We should start with Islamic psychology first, and Islamic psychology is based on the Islamic worldview foundation. Okay? And when we talk about Islamic worldview, so we may start to talk about human nature that we may ask after this.
And when you say about spiritual intelligence, what does that mean?
Spiritual intelligence is the capacity of our inner self that will drive our conduct into a good virtue. If we are not really aware of ourselves, or we might really mean something that is something wrong with our attribute, we might be mindful that we need to take our action into good deeds and try to avoid all the bad deeds in our life.
Is it a sort of reasoning?
It involves reasoning and our insight, our soul as well.
In your paper, you talk about fitra as the inner human nature.
Yeah.
Can you please elaborate this?
Okay, fitra or human nature is actually the true essence, and from the Islamic perspective, is the true essence of our existence, to our very existence, and it means that actually we are a spiritual being, okay, created by God, and then God blow His Spirit to us and to make ourselves to be exist in this world. So when a human wants to live this life or into this world, he should always abide by the law of God. In Islam, we call it Sharia. So in that sense, we always be to get ourselves in a very true path, or to live in a happy life, we should follow all the commandments of God.
Okay, you say the most important thing that everybody knows, we are spiritual beings.
Yeah.
But what does exactly that mean? So what is the nature of the
spiritual being? Means that in every human, regardless he is Islam or other affiliation like Christians or Jews or Hindus, they always feel that they need the help from God, especially when they are alone and they are in a disaster or whatsoever. He will feel that he needs something that can protect him, and in that moment, as our natural feelings are natural in a natural environment, we say we need something big to help us in that difficult situation. So it is common to everyone, on every human in this world, that we need have some connection to God. It is the human nature.
But in that context, then our spiritual dimension is a consequence of what we learn.
Yeah.
But isn't the spiritual dimension is not something we have before we learn about a religion, for example?
Okay, because as I said just now, we have our inclination to get in, to be what we call it, to hold to something. So
I agree.
the other thing is only the knowledge. Okay, we know that. Or this is a religion to tell us that we should have a religion to guide ourselves, to make ourselves secure. Okay, and in Islam we also say that human, or in Arabic we call it insan, also a forgetful being. So they need to be reminded, need to be some guidance. Like in Islam we have Quran and Al Hadith to guide them to run this life. Okay.
Yeah, but in that sense, what I'm trying to understand is, are we spiritual because we have a religion, or we have a religion because we are spiritual?
Okay, in the Western perspective, they believe that in the early Western conception before in the 21st century, the Judeo-Christian also believe that the concept of spiritual is we need to relate that spiritual to religion. But when it comes to modern days in 21st century, the modern science that what we call advocate the modern psychology, they try to only rely on the physical scientific methodology. And however, now for the time for the recent time, the psychology is going back that we need a spiritual kind of understanding that maybe the concept like spiritual intelligence, they might connote, maybe you also can be inferred to somebody like atheist or with monotheism religion. But for the religion context, we should have our own conceptual, like if you want to be spiritual, they need to be a religion. And for the atheist, maybe you can be spiritual, but you don't have to need a religion. It's the only thing that you have to do a good deeds to all living things in this world.
So yes, we can be spiritual, either we don't have a religion. I didn't get that.
Like this, for the Westerns or for some atheists, they might say that we may have a spiritual, but we no need to have a religion. But in the Islamic perspective, we should, when we say spiritual or spirituality, should be connected with religion.
So in the Islamic, if a person doesn't have a religion, he's not a spiritual person. Is what you meant?
Not necessarily so, but to be a good Muslim, or to be a good Muslim, we should have both the spiritual and to be incorporated with religion as well. It's intertwined concept.
In your paper, you talk about ruh, which is spirit, right? And naf, which is soul.
Soul or self.
Can you please explain the difference?
Okay. Actually, this concept is taken from the big scholar called, his name is Al-Ghazali. He said that actually there are four entities in the spiritual matters of human. You know, you have ruh, spirit. We have soul or nafs. We have heart or qalb, and we have akal or intelligence. All of these actually actually is a one concept, but it might be different in terms of how it is actually conceptualized. For example, every human being actually have their own ruh or spirit, but to manifest their what we call it their deeds or work, they might be driven by the nafs or soul, okay, or the heart.
So our spirit is there, is already there.
Yeah, it's already there.
And our soul is like
driving.
The drive.
Drive. Ourselves. Like that.
You know that I promote a new philosophical method which let us understand the nature and essence of human being.
Okay.
We as human beings have 4 dimensions.
Okay.
The physical one, the biological one, the social one, and the spiritual one.
Yeah, the psychological concept. Yeah.
So because of the laws of evolve, we even though the previous one is the basis for the next one. The
Yeah.
next one controls the previous
Yeah.
one. But what this means is that our spiritual dimension controls our social dimension,
Yeah, right.
right? And our social dimension controls our biological dimension.
Yeah,
The
right.
way we act, the way we feel, the way
Yeah.
we have consequences in
Yeah.
this world.
Yeah.
So in this context, I understand that Islam, Muslim people have a spiritual dimension which is developed differently than other or
Evolution, yeah.
from non-Muslim person.
Yeah, yeah.
And you talk about this in your paper. So in your perspective, what is the difference of a Muslim, not just person, but society, which have been driven by this religion among a lot of time? And what's the difference developing this spiritual dimension in that way, with using the Quran as the basis for the development of knowledge and wealthness and being, than people that doesn't have that way to evolve the spiritual dimension? What is the difference between Muslim and non-Muslim in that sense?
In that sense, okay, the difference, I want to tell about the similarity first.
Okay.
Like we all human beings, so every human being, as I told just now, is our inclination is to do good in the very first place, to do good, and everybody in this world need to be treated equally, you know, and they don't want any bad things to happen to them and caused by others as well. But what happened today today might be they are not really abide to the commandments that have been sent by God, you know, because as a Muslim they need to really to respect every religion. Actually, they cannot touch or destroy other worshippers' place. Okay, in this respect, and the differences from Muslim and non-Muslim is, to be a Muslim you need to pronounce a Shahadah, which is you have to admit that there's only one God, which is in our specifically is Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala. And for non-Muslim, maybe if it's simply that if they want to be a Muslim, just pronounce the Shahadah and they become a Muslim. But the difference may be the way they means that the way they project their thinking, the way how they conceptualize their thinking. Everything in Islam is related to God, and there is nothing is free from religion actually in that sense. So actually we cannot say that if you want to do meditation is just standing and take a deep breath and don't think of anything. But in Islam it is not working that way. So we should connect. Everything we do is connected to God, and when do that kind of thing, so we feel calm. And I think it's nothing wrong, because every human being in this world have a universal values, which is every one of us need to be have to do a good deeds and need to be treated equally in that sense. So I think Muslim and non-Muslim only different is Muslim is pronouncing Shahadah and do what God have asked us to do. That's all.
You said something interesting. I'm going to take advantage of this opportunity. I'm talking to an academic and a psychologist.
Yeah.
Psychologically, how does affect a person what you just said, that if a person takes God as the only thing that matters the most to guide their life, how does it affect that psychologically a person that understands only God as the only important thing, against a person that doesn't have a God but is trying to, let's say, take care of the world? So psychologically, I understand, or I've seen that the person who worships God as the only important thing may destroy the world, because the most important thing is God. So what can you say about this? how does affect a person psychologically only to worship or to take care of God as the most important thing?
Actually, in Islam, because we need to balance ourselves, because we're not only worshipping God, we also need to do good as what God have said in the commandments. Okay, and what is happening, what is like what is mislead that happening to this world is actually they are not really following maybe the commandments of God and what the Prophet have said, and maybe they are not really abide by what they need to respect others actually. And for me, for the non-Muslim to like to what you call it? What you said just now?
Psychologically, how it affects the person?
Okay, psychologically, actually, when we see most of people, we say for the Muslim people, most of them are really lack of awareness on their religion actually, because they are not aware that what they do is wrong and maybe in a state of ignorance. For me, as a non-Muslim, they also do a good deeds as well, and they also can manage this world in a peaceful way. But the only difference is how the way we believe in God, and in psychology, in psychological sense, sometimes for example, the psychotherapy itself really cannot solve what is problem happening, like what is the inner sickness that we have, like psychological problem in oneself, actually can be cured if you really understand what is wrong with yourself. When you what we call it, when you try to make balance of each of your deeds and in your mind, so it will automatically put the psychological aspect in yourself into a right track, something like that.
Get it. My staff is telling me we're running out of time.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, I would like to ask a final question.
Yeah.
You said that we are, nature, we are good.
Yeah.
We try to see goodness.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, there are people who believe the opposite, because if you give something to a baby boy,
yeah,
he will just want it for himself.
Yeah.
And people believe that maybe we're selfish from the very beginning.
Okay.
But that's against your idea. So can you elaborate a little bit?
Can you repeat the questions?
Yeah. You have said that we are good.
Yeah.
As our nature. Our human nature is being good.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, other people believe that our human nature is selfishness.
Okay.
So can you elaborate a little bit more about what do you think our human nature is being good instead of being selfish? Okay,
actually, as our human nature, because I said before in the early of our interview, actually. Human is always forgetful. That's why when he in the forget state, so they might be doing like selfish. They might be doing bad things. So they need, or a person need to go back from the bad state of self to a good state. So he need to be mindful that he need to treat people in a really good way. So maybe people in the concept of Islam, there are 4 states of self or nafs. We might say in the middle state, I only can say that our soul is always aware. When we do wrong, we always go back to our original state, which is to do good. Okay. So,
okay, get it. All right. Thank you, Doctor, for being here with us. Thank you for watching this interview with
thank you.
Dr. Yahil.
Yeah.
And keep in touch with the channel and the Malaysian branch of the World Philosophical Forum tracking the World Philosophy Day next 20th and 21 November. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you.